Alright, so we've got a brand new developer update for Crimson Desert, and this one is actually pretty important because it gives us a clear picture of how the developers are responding to player feedback just weeks after launch. It's been about 3 weeks since players first stepped into the world of Pywel, and during that time, the team has been actively watching how people play, what they enjoy, and more importantly, what they feel is missing. And you can really tell with this update, they're not just pushing out random features. They're targeting specific areas that players have been talking about. The developers opened by acknowledging the community, highlighting everything from player-created stories to the surprising popularity of in-game moments like pet interactions, which, even if it sounds small, actually says a lot about how people are engaging with the world. When players start sharing those kinds of experiences, it usually means the game has a strong foundation. But at the same time, the devs clearly recognize that a strong foundation isn't enough. You need systems that keep players coming back. And that's where this update really starts to matter. One of the biggest additions coming is boss rematches, and this is more significant than it might seem at first glance. Being able to go back and fight bosses again isn't just about replaying content, it's about measuring progression. In a combat-heavy game like Crimson Desert, players naturally get better over time, learning mechanics, refining timing, and experimenting with different builds or strategies. Boss rematches give players a structured way to test that growth. It also adds longevity because instead of bosses being one and done encounters, they become part of an ongoing gameplay loop. That's something a lot of modern action RPGs rely on, and it's good to see it being implemented here. Along that is a feature called re-blockading, which introduces a more dynamic element to the world. Instead of areas staying permanently cleared after you liberate them, enemy forces can return and reclaim those locations. That means players have to revisit areas not just for completion's sake, but to actively maintain control. This kind of system helps prevent the world from feeling static. It reinforces the idea that Pywel is a living environment where your actions matter, but they don't permanently solve everything. It's a subtle shift, but it can have a big impact on how engaging the world feels over time. Another major addition is difficulty settings, and this is something that broadens the game's appeal significantly. By introducing easy, normal, and hard modes, the developers are making it clear that they want both casual players and more hardcore players to enjoy the experience on their own terms. For newer players, this lowers the barrier to entry, while experienced players can push themselves further. Difficulty options also tend to increase replayability because players may come back to try a harder mode once they're more comfortable with the mechanics. The update also touches on combat improvements, specifically for characters like Damien and Anga. Player feedback pointed out that these characters didn't feel as strong or versatile compared to others with abilities like Force Palm or Axiom Force, and the developers are addressing that directly by adding new skills to bring them up to par. That kind of targeted balancing is important because it shows the team is paying attention not just to broad feedback, but to specific gameplay concerns. When players feel like their feedback leads to tangible changes, it builds trust in the development process. There are also some smaller but meaningful additions that improve immersion and customization. For example, the option to hide weapons on your character's back might not sound like a big deal, but in a visually detailed game, little things like that can break immersion. Giving players the option to toggle that off lets them tailor the experience to their preference. On top of that, new outfits are being added, and some existing outfits that were previously limited in use will now be wearable, which expands customization without requiring entirely new assets. Where this update really starts to shine, though, is its in quality of life improvements. Inventory management is something that can make or break long-term enjoyment in a game like this, and the addition of specialized storage systems is a direct response to that. Food storage allows players to access ingredients more easily while cooking, wardrobes provide a dedicated space for gear, gatherable storage organizes crafting materials, and collection storage keeps track of quest-related items and recipes. These systems reduce clutter and streamline gameplay, which might not be flashy, but they make a huge difference over time. The expansion of pets and mounts is another area that adds both functionality and flavor to the game. More summable mounts and new pets give players additional ways to interact with the world, and the introduction of armor for non-horse mounts suggests the system is evolving beyond just basic traversal. It hints at deeper customization and possibly even gameplay implications down the line. On the technical side, the developers are making improvements to the user interface, controls, and overall visual quality. User interface readability is being addressed with adjustable font sizes, which is especially important for a game supporting multiple languages. Control customization is also being expanded, allowing players to fine-tune their experience whether they're using a controller or keyboard and mouse. These changes might not grab headlines, but they're essential for making the game feel polished and accessible. Visually, improvements to distant scenery are on the way, aiming to make the world feel more immersive and realistic. Enhancing how environments look at a distance can have a surprisingly big impact on how expansive and believable the world feels. The only downside mentioned is that these improvements could lead to larger patch sizes, but that's a trade-off most players are willing to accept if it means a better looking game. And then there's a nice bonus announcement. The Crimson Desert soundtrack is going to be released for free on Steam and on major streaming platforms. That's a great addition for players who connect with the game's music, and it's always a good sign when developers invest in sharing that part of the experience outside the game itself. All of these updates are planned to roll out gradually from April through June, and while everything is still in development and subject to change, the overall direction is pretty clear. This is a feedback-driven approach focused on improving core systems, adding replayability, and refining the overall experience rather than completely reinventing the game. And honestly, that's exactly what you want to see this early after launch. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you want to support the channel even more, check out my Patreon. Link is in the description, where my latest exclusive takes a deep dive into whether or not Xbox exclusives are dead. Let me know what you think about this update. Does it make you more interested in sticking with Crimson Desert, or are you still waiting for bigger changes down the line? Until next time, game on.